Hey Tankers, it's Ace back here with another one of my commentary videos. This time I'm actually revisiting the E-25. I was kind of recently going back through my older videos and my older content and just kind of taking a look and seeing what's still relevant and what kind of maybe needs updating. And one of the videos I was really unhappy with was my E-25 video. I had shot it really quickly because it was beta stuff and I was really excited about the tank, and there wasn't a lot of people online at the time, so I was really having a hard time finding a video that was a guess of merit or quality that I could use to kind of showcase how the tank was effectively played. And as a result of it being beta and weird things happening in beta, it really just wasn't the best of videos to really show how to use the tank properly. So I'm coming back to the drawing board and I'm doing a new review video for the E-25, a proper E-25 review. So if we're taking a look here at the tank, it's kind of fun. I've been using the E-25 as my premium tank for my Stug crew, or my Hetzer crew, excuse me. Maybe like to have a premium for a tier 4 is kind of silly and unneeded, but I mean, there's really no other crew that I have that really matches that kind of that setup, and I just kind of, they both are very similar tanks really, so I figured it'd be kind of fun to have the two. But setting up the tank and looking at the tank's stats, so you can see it only has 50 armor on the hull and 30 on the sides and rear, and for tier 7 that's almost non-existent. If you actually look and compare the Panther with the AUG Panther, which as we all know is not nearly as tough, it's a lot tougher. I mean, 80 armor compared to the 50 on the front is substantial, and the sloping on the Panther is a little bit better. But even then, the Panther gets penetrated pretty regularly, so it's just one of those things that you're not going to be, taking a lot of abuse in the E-25. I mean, 850 hit points on the AUG Panther. If you compare that to the E-25, I think it's going to be a lot less, and it's 830. Not substantially less, but nonetheless, it is less. The other thing that's interesting about this tank too is looking at the gun damage and the rate of fire. As you can see, the rate of fire is really impressive. You got 20 rate of fire, and the damage overall is just alright. I mean, 150 pen is not really that impressive. I mean, there's certain tanks that are just, you're not going to be able to get through. Thinking off the top of my head, the Tiger P, IS, T29, and on the turret armor, there's a lot of tanks that have really good armor that this gun's just not going to regularly penetrate on tier 7. And even in tier 8, now you're in a whole another world of trouble, and penning tier 8s is pretty much impossible for heavies unless you're doing it on flank shots and rear shots and things like that, which is possible in the E-25 because of its fast maneuverability and its amazing camo rating, but nonetheless, just things that you have to be mindful of. But even though the gun doesn't pack a lot of damage or too much penetration, it does have a lot of things that do compensate for that, and obviously the rate of fire being 20 means that this tank has amazing DPM. It's just interesting, and this is where it makes the E-25 kind of difficult, is that when you're shooting it repeatedly with a rate of 20 at your rate of fire, you're almost constantly firing. And because of that, you really have to be careful where you situate yourself, because for an ambush tank, if you continuously fire repeatedly, you're going to be continuously making yourself known on the map, and it makes it easy for you to be spotted sometimes. So be very, very careful of where you situate your tank, and that's why I'm going to say, when you're going about crew skills on this vehicle, a full camo rating and it's called 6th Sense are almost a priority. I mean, most of any TDs are exactly the same way, but with this tank it's even more of an emphasis. You really have to be careful in this thing. I mean, it just literally cannot take rounds. The thing is that because it is such a low-profile vehicle, I mean, you can dodge some incoming shots. I mean, the Type 59 is pretty small, but when you compare it to the E-25, wait, there is smaller. They do get small. But that's pretty much it. As for equipment and those kind of things I go with, vents is kind of my go-to. I didn't really feel like I needed a rammer on this tank because it's got a rate of fire of 20, so you don't really need to go with that. Vents kind of buffs everything. It seemed to be the best idea in camouflage and the binoculars. Now I went with binoculars over anything else, and is because, you're going to be sitting when you're going to be firing. You're going to be situated and sitting, and you want to spot before your opponent does. It helps kind of compensate the camouflage. It makes it harder for them to spot you, but you can spot them before they can, and usually because I'm situated in a camped position, I want to be able to spot much further than I can. Is the farthest possible I can, and you can with binoculars. The coated optics are a nice touch because this tank is maneuverable, but ultimately I think that the 25 stationary kind of plays in more to the TD strengths than a, 10% bonus all the time when you're moving around and stuff. So that's my setup. As for the equipment I went with, kind of my standard setup, I usually go with auto fire extinguisher, the first aid kit, and small repair kit. You can go with the higher ones if you want to spend the extra money for. That's your choice. And obviously, as for my ammo setup, I'm only taking 5 HE. There's only a couple of instances where I think I'm going to be really going to need the high explosive and that extra damage, and the penetration is so abysmal. The only times I'm going to be really using those are going to be on open turreted vehicles or maybe on artillery. But even then, it's not too impressive. And then obviously, for the extra penetration on the off chance I do need to engage a heavy in a key moment, I have the APCR with the 20 rounds of the APCR, and then obviously 35 of the regular AP. With the great pace, the rate of fire, you don't get punished too much for switching ammunition. You can just literally tap the 1 or 2 icon on your reload setup, and it'll load in that next round relatively quickly. So you can switch between the different types of ammo really fast, which is really nice with the gun with a high rate of fire, which I do like on the E-25. But let's go ahead, and I do have one match for you. It's not the best match I've ever played, but nonetheless, it does really well to showcase kind of what you can do in this tank and how to play it. So let's go ahead and jump in. Alright guys, so here we are on Kumarin. As you all know, this is kind of one of those older maps that they've reintroduced. I'm really happy to see this map back in the game. It's been kind of fun to play it in the mid-tiers since they don't actually offer it for the higher tiers, because the view ranges are just so outlandish it makes this map tough to play. I have to say, it was pretty fun when it was around, and if you knew what you were doing, you could really use those view ranges to your advantage to get some outlandish kills, but I think that's probably the exact reason how come they took it out in the first place. But just looking at my opposing team, looking at our team, we look like we're pretty evenly stacked up. I am concerned about the 2 Cromwells and the Sherman Jumbo that they have on their opposing team. Both those tanks have really high DPMs, and the E-25 does not do particularly too well against tanks that are of equivalent speeds, especially considering mediums and lights, because those kind of tanks can pen the E-25 pretty consistently, as we mentioned before, in the light armor. And it's just not tanks you want to run into. But early on in the game, because E-25 is so fast, I'm just going to use this opportunity to try to get up real fast, maybe get some ambush tactics in, and maybe get some spots going. But before I even get into position, I get spotted, which is not a good indication when you're trying to be in a TD that's light on armor. So things aren't looking good. Also, our flank is relatively light. There's only a medium, a light, and me up here, and that other heavy that's kind of lingering in the background. And the super heavy T-29 is now on our flank, and I'm just not happy with this positioning. The light's taking some abuse, so it's time for us to get the hell out of Dodge. And sure enough, I get spotted on my escape. I take a couple rounds in the back, and as I'm trying to make my escape, and it was just one of the situations where it was a good call for me to evacuate when I did. And even though I do get punished a little bit for it, I'm alive. That's the big key important thing to be worried about. I'm still really worried about those mediums, but I wanted to get into real cover real fast and kind of better situate myself. And sure enough, there's the Cromwell. I hit him 3 times, but he hits me once, and I don't have the life to trade with him, so again, I'm going to have to do that exact same thing I did before, which is get the hell out of Dodge. So again, taking some serious abuse. There's no point in me trading. That other heavy goes ahead and blows up. Like this whole flank with leg gets been blown right through. Now, as I'm dipping out, I'm still looking for the opportunity to reset up and do, again, those ambush tactics I was doing before, and I know that me approaching my artillery, I'm going to have to find a good spot to set up and fire. There's not a lot of places to do so, and I think that Artie round was that Artie just saying, hey, F you, why are you leaving me here? And I really wasn't. He's just, if you can't watch the map, Artie has to be careful too. Kind of rams me and does some shenanigans shit because I don't know what he was thinking. But I didn't let it distract me. Just kept shooting away. I do take a couple rounds here too. And surprisingly, I didn't die. And it was one of those situations where I thought I was dead for sure, but you know, just stay and keep fighting, and sometimes you can get away with the victory. And that was really a close call. My matchup was over right there. But you know, now that I've kind of survived that ambush tactic, I can get back to work on DPMing down the speed of the tank, and I really don't want to kill that T-29. I put 2 rounds into him, and sure enough, I have to duck back down into cover. Don't want to stay exposed, regardless of my life pool. When you play the E-25, you just don't want to trade. You want to stay camoed. So I get up a couple rounds, and I see that heavy lingering around in the background. So I'm kind of debating on where I should position myself, because the only place that the opponent's going to be heading is towards the cap. And I don't know. There's really not a lot of places to situate myself. So I figure maybe I'll move away a little bit from the cap and maybe get a couple ambush on key resets if I need to buy time for our enemies if we need to. So I find these little stakes of bushes and set up. It's not really the best of positions to be at. I'm relatively exposed, but the water's only a tile or 2 behind me, and I figured I could maybe run out that direction if I needed to. But the camouflage, just using that to my advantage to kind of avoid the incoming fire. And I'm looking for the T-29, but it's kind of like, it looks like it's withdrawn. I think it's going back. It's obviously pulled off to go ahead and reset. And sure enough, there's the KV one. They came out with 1 shot, and with the help of artillery and that medium. And I'm still looking, still waiting to identify, you know, where the other tanks are. And it took me a couple seconds of computing to figure out where the you know, enemy team was. I should have probably been rushing a little bit faster. I was still freaked out about that T-29, but I spaced out and didn't realize that he actually had already pulled out. So now, using the speed of the E-25, we're going to go ahead and rush in real fast, and I'm going to see if I can get positioned to kind of cover the cap and take out those last remaining vehicles. Just really quick, really zippy, finding the advantageous terrain in the hill. And sure enough, there's the enemy tank. I set up, I get off one shot, and it looks like I got off an ammo rack of some kind, or who knows. That tank exploded pretty amazingly. Either that or the T-34 is just, well, I'm in a tier 7 and then it was a tier 5. I guess that's what that was. I just was kind of surprised to one-shot that tank, I guess. Now we're looking for the Arty, and at this point, there's really only one place it can be, hiding here back behind this bridge. And sure enough, I get spotted. That's a good indicator I'm on the right track. And here we go. We finish off the Arty. Nope. That's the match for you guys. And that's, I think, the best way to really showcase how effectively to use the E-25 in a proper match. You are squishy. Your tank is incredibly fast, so don't situate yourself in any place where you're going to take a lot of damage, and don't be afraid to fall back and ambush your opponents as they continuously charge forward. You know, if you're going to stay in front of your flank and not be on their flanks, if you're going to be directly in front of your opponent, you're going to have to situate yourself, get off a couple shots, withdraw. Situate yourself, get off a couple shots, withdraw. So that's my tip for you guys here, and that's a proper review of the E-25. 4 kills in that tank, not the best, but nonetheless a good match to showcase how to effectively use this vehicle. So thank you very much, guys. This is Ace Dollbox signing off.